What's up, everybody? It's Sid and Millie back with another episode. So we'll be kind of chatting about doing a little Manchester United slash World Cup collaboration,
Yeah,
just kind
yeah.
of chatting about some of the Manchester United players who are in the World Cup
Yeah.
and kind of how they've been performing so far.
Yeah, facts. So obviously had to keep up with the United lads during the World Cup.
Of
Naturally, they're out
course.
here representing their countries and obviously trying their best to, contribute to their countries. And we can kind of get a little glimpse of what we can expect next season,
Mm-hmm.
watching, how they perform. Obviously, international football is a little bit different, but, it gives us a little inkling on, where their performance is at the moment. So,
Okay.
I think it's pretty cool seeing them play on a different stage, and represent their countries, and yeah, so we've been peeping them.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Yeah,
And Millie, would you say there's any players that you've been maybe particularly keeping up with a little more than others?
yeah, I think definitely. I think Cunha with Brazil, mainly just because I'm a Brazil fan and
Of
I want to
course.
see Brazil do well. Additionally, Rashford, with England, and Kobe Manu also with England. Free Kobe hashtag once again being completely
Yes.
misused, or not underused.
Not
But
used at
anyway, we'll
all.
get into that in a little bit. And then I said Rashford already.
Yep.
Yeah, Rashford, and then of course Bruno Fernandes with Portugal, our
Portugal.
captain. And then Ahmad is with the Ivory Coast. They've made history, finally getting into a knockout stage round and advancing from the
Yes.
group. So a huge shout out to him, for his contribution. And obviously they have a big game coming up this week. So
Okay.
so yeah, so
Nice. Is it like a knockout game for them coming up
yeah,
this week?
yeah. So everything
Okay.
is knockout now. So yeah, we literally just saw Germany get knocked out by
Yes.
Paraguay, which is like the
Yes.
first big like shock of the World Cup.
Okay.
But yeah, I think everybody has like those big games, and obviously Cunha had his game against Japan today,
Right,
in which
right.
Brazil advanced. Great header from Casemiro. I think he gets a little
Yes.
honorable mention as well,
As a
since he's,
United lad,
yeah,
yeah.
fact, since he's technically still under contract for now. So
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 yeah,
yeah.
we'll grandfather him in.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, wishing a speedy recovery to Manuel Ugarte. Obviously, he tore his ACL, so he's going to be out for a long period of time. And for Manchester United, obviously, particularly, you mainly want the player to get healthy and to have
Of
a speedy
course.
recovery and everything. But then on the club side, if you're looking at the back office sort of the thing, FIFA will inevitably compensate Manchester United for Ugarte's wages,
Oh, wow.
due to the
Okay.
fact he was injured at the World Cup. So,
Ooh.
so both on both ends, Manchester United gets a little bit of a benefit, from the unfortunate injury. But of course, it gives Ugarte, whatever time he needs to recover.
Ample.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Very ample time, which is
Facts.
good. Yeah, because you said he tore his ACL.
Yeah, yeah, it was a pretty
Yikes.
serious knee injury. So
Yeah.
he'll be out for at least like 9 months, give or take, depending on what they, do
Right.
when
For
with his
his,
recovery.
yeah,
Yeah,
recovery.
yeah. So yeah, hopefully speedy recovery
Yeah,
for
speedy
him, but
recovery
but
for
we'll see what
him.
happens. And I think for Manchester United, it kind of just highlights the need for midfielders, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
club is desperate for midfielders, and now with Ugarte's injury, that's another midfielder that we're now down. So the club really needs to start making some action in the transfer market to kind of
Ooh.
address this deficit in the midfield that we have,
Okay. Yeah.
because the big glaring question is who is going to support Bruno Fernandes and Kobe Manu in the midfield. We kind of need that profile ASAP, and we need to get that figured out ASAP.
Yeah,
Um,
especially with losing Casemiro.
exactly, yeah. And Casemiro, he's irreplaceable. What he brings with goals, what he brings with personality, what he brings
Mm-hmm.
in leadership, what he brings in experience. You can't really replace a player like Casemiro. So I'm hoping that Manchester United will invest in a younger but proven talent who can
Yeah.
kind of continue to grow with the club. Because again, Manchester United's focus is long term and needs to be long term success. We don't just want to barely scrape and win the Premier League this year. We want to challenge this year and challenge next year and challenge the
Right.
year after. That's the goal. So hopefully we can bring in a personality who can be that player for us.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah. But anyway, getting back into the World Cup, I think of course, Cunha has probably been the biggest standout in terms of his production at the World Cup.
Ooh, okay. How so?
Well, he scored 3 goals in their first
Dang.
3 games. So,
Oh, wow.
so
Okay.
yeah, so he is the highest goal scorer from Manchester United at the World Cup. So,
Okay.
really love that for him.
Facts.
This Brazil team, they're a star-studded team. I don't know if the football they're playing right now necessarily benefits Cunha's style of football. I think, I would love to see him pick up the ball in spaces and run at defenders a little bit more. I don't think he's picking up the ball in those sorts of positions with
Mm,
Brazil. And I think that's coming from playing as the 9, which is what
okay.
he played today. Whereas with United, he typically plays a little bit of a wider position.
Right.
And that kind of allows him to pick up the ball in areas and run at people.
Be able to
Um,
like actually maneuver a little bit more versus being
yeah,
just the guy who gets the ball right before they
exactly.
shoot,
Yeah,
sort of thing.
100%. So I don't necessarily know if he's being utilized in his most effective position. But at least today in the game against Japan, I would say. But I think for the rest of the tournament, he's made it clear that he's integral to the squad. And I
Mm-hmm.
think he will find himself starting and having important contributions for Brazil. And he's a player that can change the game at a moment's notice. And I think that that's massively important in a tournament like this. Because kind of like what we saw with Germany today, like they just didn't have like that killer instinct. They didn't have that edge. They
Mm,
didn't have that player that was going to really finish and like score the goal or take the shot and take that responsibility. And I think Cunha is a player like that. He's going to be willing to take those risky shots for Brazil
yeah.
and run at players late in game. And I think that that's going to be massively important as they progress into the tournament. So yeah, I think Cunha's got a lot of work cut out for him, but I think he's more than capable of, holding that torch and being a really important part of Brazil's squad.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Love the character development for Cunha in your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think, he's a very likable person, a likable player. He definitely works hard for the badge. And you have to appreciate that. I think,
Yeah.
any fan, you'd be silly not to appreciate a player that works like that. So I think he's definitely grown on me. And again, I think the transition of manager for Manchester United really helped him as well.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we switched over to Michael Carrick, we saw players like Cunha really start to flourish, and we really
Yeah.
got to see who they were and their character and how they fought for the badge.
Mm-hmm.
Carrick really brought the best out of a multitude of players,
True.
Cunha included. So I think, yeah, around that halfway point in the season, he really started growing on me, and now I'm in the camp. I'm in the camp.
Yeah.
So saw me surfing with that. So yeah, so I'm excited for him and excited for what Brazil can do. I think they've got a really special team there. So,
Awesome.
but yeah, I think maybe England we should chat about
Yeah,
next.
let's chat about England. So, who are our English lads from
Um,
Manchester United?
our English lads are Marcus Rashford and Kobe Manu. There are two men.
Maguire.
No, surprisingly, Maguire was not called for this World Cup. Yeah,
Oh,
it was a
okay.
pretty big surprise for the England fan base, for myself, because Maguire's been in great form,
Yeah, that
and
is
was
surprising.
more than deserving of a national team call up. But again, just like what we're seeing with the substitutions and with the decisions being made from the manager of England, it's not really surprising. He
Yeah,
he
fair
doesn't really
enough.
have a clue, to be honest, not when it comes to the footballing side. So for Maguire, I don't think he should really look at this as like a setback at all,
Yeah.
in his career, because it's really not. And I would say the exact same thing for Kobe Manu. Kobe Manu is not getting minutes, not because he's not the best midfielder in the English side. He's not getting minutes because the manager, what I'm saying, the manager isn't thinking.
Has something. Yeah.
So that's really just the reality of it. You can't look back at Mainu's performances in the Euros and Mainu's performances throughout this past season, once Carrick took over, and think that, yeah, this player couldn't play in this team. That it's absolutely ridiculous. And the
Yeah.
fact that Thomas Tuchel subbed on a 36-year-old Jordan Henderson, playing in God knows where league, before he subbed on Kobe Manu, just speaks volumes to the fact that Thomas Tuchel doesn't know
Yeah.
what's going on. And so with that being said, I do think England's in danger. As much as I hate to say it,
Yeah.
every year they go to the World Cup, they go to these tournaments, they've got stars on their team, they've got players in form, and every time they have a manager that just does not know how to utilize the tools at their disposal.
Yeah.
And I think we're just seeing, Southgate 2.0 with Thomas Tuchel.
Oof.
Just boring football side to side. They snuck through their last game. Not their last game, the game before that. But yeah, I really would love to see England kind of released, allowed to play to their full potential. Again, Declan Rice and Kobe Mainu, they make a fantastic midfield partnership.
Okay.
We saw that at the Euros previously, so we know that they can play together, and we know that they play well together. So, I mean, again, we haven't seen a midfielder that Kobe Mainu can't play with. So that really speaks volumes to it.
He can
So
do it all.
yeah, for real. So I'm not sure what's going on with Thomas Tuchel there, but he's making that decision. And he'll live by it, die by it. And when they fire him after this World Cup, after England underperform, we won't be surprised.
Yeah, true.
But needless to say, that's the situation with Kobe Mainu and Maguire with the England squad.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, we finally saw Rashford get a start and get a full 90 minutes for England. I was, honestly surprised that Thomas Tuchel made the decision. But again, if you looked at purely stats alone on paper, there was no comparison between Rashford and Gordon. Rashford clears him every single day of the week.
Yeah.
Clears him, creates more chances, crosses the balls more, is more decisive in his dribbles, actually can beat defenders, and he takes his own shots. Rashford is another game-changing player. He is someone you want in big games. Why? Because he can shoot, he can pass, he can cross, he can take free kicks. You literally get it all with him on the field. And that is what England needed previously.
Yeah.
In the games they didn't start Rashford, they desperately needed a player like Rashford to change the dynamic of the attack. And guess what? Here's the thing, Thomas Tuchel. You've been getting pissed off in your last couple games because Harry Kane is dropping so deep to pick up the ball and get touches on his feet. The reason that is happening is because Harry Kane is not getting service. He's not getting the ball from his wide players. He's not getting crosses from his wide players. And he's not getting played into his feet, Thomas Tuchel. So that is the reason Harry Kane is dropping so far back to pick up the ball. And what does that leave? A space in the center backs where Harry Kane should be, but he isn't. So it makes defending for the other team much easier when the main striker is dropping back to pick up the ball. But what a player like Rashford allows is for Harry Kane to stay higher up the pitch because he knows he's going to get service. He knows his winger is going to beat the outside back and try and serve him. And he knows that his winger is going to try and pass into him. And that is the massive difference in the way that England play when Rashford is on the field versus when he's not. They are exponentially better with him on the field. And the only way they really look decisive, like they're going to score goals, is when Rashford is on the field. So again, another tool at Thomas Tuchel's disposal. We don't know if he was just resting players for the Panama game or what, but Rashford should be starting.
Yeah.
Mainu obviously should be starting, but Rashford, again, in this tournament has already shown why he should be starting. So there's really no excuse for Thomas Tuchel, honestly, at this point. So hopefully Rashford gets the start that he deserves.
Yeah, hopefully, because I feel like he's, like you said, already made so many influences on the games that they've played already.
Yeah, it's just night and day. It's night and day. You need attackers like that who are going to change the game and who are willing to take chances. And he is that player. So again, England have to be willing to do that. And with the amount of pressure the team has, Thomas Tuchel really needs to lean into these people who are going to get them across the line. Because, in these knockout stage games, you can't leave it to 70, 80 minutes to try and make a decisive substitution. That's way too late in the game.
Way too late.
So that's the story there. I'm trying to think. We also, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say we could talk about Portugal. I don't think we went in on Bruno
Portugal.
Fernandes yet.
Yeah, Portugal is another one. It is baffling to me that another country was willing to give Roberto Martinez an opportunity with their quote unquote golden generation. That's the manager of Portugal, Roberto Martinez. And Belgium hired him as his coach previously.
Dang, okay. And
at
he's
another time.
not like
I just don't see it, honestly. Like, Portugal has too many good players at their disposal, too many weapons that they could be using, too many players that should be decisive, and they're just playing methodical pass,
Mm,
pass, pass. I mean, they got played off the pitch by Colombia. And
is that surprising?
it is a bit surprising because Portugal is, again, one of the European giants that's coming in here into this tournament with a certain level of expectation to
Got
their
it.
performance. So, yeah, it's a little disappointing. I mean, Colombia is no pushover team, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Colombia is here to play, and South America showed up to this World Cup. Believe that. But with that being said, when you have names like Neto, Bruno Fernandes, Neves, Ruben Diaz, Cristiano Ronaldo, there's a level of expectation when you have
Mm-hmm.
names like that on your team. And yeah, I just think the way Portugal is playing, it stifles Bruno Fernandes completely.
Yeah.
I just I don't even know what their build up pattern or process is. And also, it wasn't until they subbed on Diego Dallo in the last game that we actually seeing Portugal cross the ball. And it's like,
Oh.
you've got Ronaldo in the box, one of the best headers of the ball in football, and nobody wanted to cross the ball until Dallo got on the pitch. So, I don't know. Portugal's build up is very slow. It's very methodical. When Fernandez picks up the ball, there's not a lot of movement off the ball. There's not people making dangerous runs in behind.
Got
There's not
it.
people cutting behind defenders or checking into unusual spaces for him to do his normal slip passes and creativity. And
Mm,
so, a lot of his game with Portugal is just connecting passes. And yeah, it's just stifling for
got
Bruno.
it.
So,
Okay.
we're seeing him take some shots, but again, he's just not up to his normal antics, his normal creativity. And I think a lot of it comes down to the way Portugal plays and the way that they're set up. And I don't think they're set up for success.
Got it.
Unfortunately, a guy like Neves, who just won the Champions League final with PSG, it's a midfielder who's kind of at the peak of his football right now, right? You don't just win the Champions League
Yeah.
by accident. And it's just like, even him with Portugal, it's like, we're not seeing that same dynamic that he brings to PSG. And so it's like, you got to ask the question, if you have all of these players who are brilliant with their clubs, they're key players with their clubs, but then they get into this squad and something isn't clicking,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the only person left to point the finger at is the manager.
True.
Because what's happening? I don't know.
Yeah, well, because they're the ones setting up the team and putting players in position
And they're
and
controlling the style in which they want to
yeah.
play. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. But it's tough watching Bruno play in handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to be creative. He needs to be close to the goal so he can shoot and play slip passes. But with that, he needs other attacking players around him who are like-minded,
Right.
which is why he does so well with Membo and Cunha, is because he's got these attacking players who also want, and why he's done so well with Rashford in the
Yeah.
past is because those are attacking players who want to make things happen.
Facts.
So it's tough for him in a team of players who are content to keep the ball. There's a Chelsea winger for Portugal named Neto, and I don't know if he ran at his outside back a single time in the entire
Really?
game while he was on the
Dang.
pitch. It's like, you're an outside midfielder. You've got to run at people. You've
Mm.
got to take people on. Even the outside backs. I mean, outside backs being part of the attack, it's almost like kind of a lost art now. Outside backs in the old days used to also be up crossing and taking players on, kind of like what Dallo does.
Okay.
Dallo is very reminiscent of that old school defender. He always wants to be attacking and crossing and taking
Yeah.
people on and outrunning people. That's what Dallo does. And it
Yes.
brings a very important dynamic to the game. So even Dallo is someone that I think should be starting for Portugal because he brings elements to their team that they don't currently have in their starting 11.
Okay.
And they got immensely better when Dallo was on the field. So, and again, Dallo, Bruno Fernandes, Ronaldo, they have a lot of, fluidity in the way they play because they've played together so much,
Facts.
both for United and for Portugal. So when they're on the field together, something is most likely going to cook up.
Yeah.
So I think, Roberto Martinez needs to put a little bit of trust in Dallo, put a little bit of trust in Bruno's creativity, and
Mm-hmm.
let them try and dictate a game a little bit. because they can do it.
Yeah, I mean, we know that. We've seen them do it.
100%. Which is probably a good segue into like Amad Diallo.
Mm-hmm.
He has been a spark at the World Cup so far, highlighting exactly the way a winger is supposed to play. He is running at outside backs, crossing them, getting into dangerous positions,
Ooh.
trying to shoot. He's scored a goal. He's had influence in every single Ivory Coast game.
Wow.
And every defender knows they have to watch Amad. After the first game in the World Cup, he had completed the most successful dribbles at the World Cup. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear.
Amad looks fiery. He looks energetic, and I have faith in the Ivory Coast. I think Norway made a big mistake going and resting players against France, accepting second place in their division, thinking that the Ivory Coast was going to be a quote unquote easier game. I think Amad and the Ivory Coast have got something cooking up for Norway. And I hope that Amad, really crosses him.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope Amad gets his goal and continues to run at defenders and continue to be dangerous. I think he was kind of lacking a little bit of that confidence towards the end of the season with Man United. But to see him, kind of refinding himself in that momentum, it's so important.
That's good.
So I hope he continues like that in this tournament, and then, brings that back, same energy back to United. Because he's such a special player. And Manchester United actually have made it clear to every club in the world that Amad is not for sale. There were rumors speculating around about clubs wanting to offer to get Amad, and Manchester United said absolutely not. So Amad is here to stay. Man United have made it clear. Carrick has made it clear that Amad has an important part in the squad for next season. So yeah, I hope that, that confidence from the club also gives him a little boost to keep balling out of the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great to hear, because I feel like we had seen a lot of kind of like a diminishment of his self, I guess, confidence in games and everything. So I'm excited to see what he brings back from like the World Cup.
Yeah, facts. And I would love for them to upset Norway. That'd be brilliant.
That would be so sick.
That would be brilliant. And then, Morocco, you've got Mazraoui playing for Morocco. Mazraoui's been doing really well. He's such an important part of Morocco's defense. They've been pretty locked down defensively, and, Mazraoui's been an immense part of that.
Oh, yes.
There's a screenshot that came out from the group stages of Mazraoui where he was literally holding off defenders with each arm and shielding the ball out of play.
Wow.
One defender on each arm, and he was, like a starfish shielding them both off.
Wow.
So yeah, I love to see that for
Fantastic,
him.
yeah.
Obviously, he's got a huge game tonight against the Netherlands in his first knockout stage
We'll be
match.
watching that.
So yeah, we'll have to see, how that shakes out for him.
Yeah, wow.
And regardless what happens, I think, he can go home knowing that he had a great tournament. He played really well and was such an important part to their defense. And Mazraoui is such a multifaceted player. He's a right back, but again, kind of like Diallo, he brings a different dynamic to the position because he's so composed on the ball, so composed under pressure. He isn't someone who's gonna panic and ping the ball down the field. He makes very concentrated decisions on the ball, and takes care of it for the team. And I can really appreciate that, a defender like that. So I think he's done great to make it this far, and, we'll see what Morocco brings today.
See what happens.
Yeah,
That's
see how
exciting.
he does. Yeah. And obviously we had, I'm trying to think, is that everyone?
Is that everyone?
I'm trying to think if I've forgotten everybody. We talked about Ugarte.
Yeah.
We talked about Cunha.
This Martinez.
We talked. Oh yeah, I mean Martinez with Argentina. This time around in the World Cup, he's actually a starter. So I think it speaks volumes to the season he had at Manchester United.
Yeah, true.
He's become such an important player for Manchester United, for our back line. He's massively physical. That they call him the Butcher for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think he's brought that same energy to Argentina's back line. I mean, one thing you haven't heard of this tournament so far is Argentina struggling defensively.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that comes down to Martinez and his contribution to their defense. So despite all the controversy, he hasn't been a part of any of that. He hasn't done anything dirty or methodic or crazy off the ball or
That's
anything
good,
like
yeah.
that. He's kept it clean and fair and is defending and is really putting his best foot forward. So yeah, shout out to Martinez doing his thing for Argentina.
Nice.
And yeah, we'll see what happens with
See what
them. You know, obviously they're
happens.
playing Capo Verde.
Oh,
I think
okay.
the odds were like plus 2,000 or something like that. So
Make a little bet on Capo Verde.
Yeah. But yeah, clear favorites Argentina to win that game. But we'll see. Nothing's guaranteed in this World Cup, as Germany
Yeah.
learned the hard way today.
True.
So,
Yeah. True. So see
yeah,
what
so
happens
we'll
with
see.
that.
I'm trying to think. I know Lemons hasn't. I know Lemons hasn't played for Belgium, but you know he's there. He's the next one up. You know, if he gets that call up, we know he'll be ready.
Oh,
he had
yes.
a fantastic season with
He
United,
did.
And is such an integral player to our squad. Obviously, Belgium have their long-term goalkeeper Courtois, who's been there forever, and you know is the legend himself. So. But he has kind of stated that this will be his last World Cup. So, you know, kind of giving the shoe into Lemons for the future of the Belgium's team. So that's great news for him.
Honestly.
So, you know, we'll probably be talking more about his performances at the next World Cup. But for now, you know, I'm glad he's there, and he's still, you know, at the end of the day, every player contributes to the team. It's not just the starting 11. You know, obviously the starting 11 are important, as are the lads on the bench. But, you know, everybody who's in the practice squad, who's training and helping the first 11 stay fit and stay sharp in every practice session, they're immensely important as well. You know, the team is more than just the 11. It goes beyond that. So, you know, happy that he's contributing to his country. So,
absolutely.
So yeah, so I think that's basically everyone. I don't think we forgot anybody. I'm scrolling, making sure. I think that was, just about everyone.
Okay.
So
I could list off other players. I don't know if they're in the World Cup.
But yeah, so let's hope, you know, Manu gets some minutes. Let's hope Rashford keeps getting minutes. Let's hope Portugal change the way they play to really allow Bruno to flourish. Let's hope Dalot starts. He was the only Portuguese player putting in dangerous crosses and attacking from the back and really, you know, helping contribute to Portugal's attack. So he could be important. Ahmad's been on fire. I think he'll continue contributing for the Ivory Coast.
Yes.
I think they're going to show up and shock Norway, and I think Ahmad's going to be a big part of that. You know, Mazraoui's got a big game tonight against the Netherlands. Let's see how his defensive actions are. I'm sure he's going to be sharp and ready for Gakpo since he's seen him before.
Ooh, okay.
You know, a little Liverpool, Man United, you know, fight for this game. Okay. So we'll see who comes out on top on that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think that's everything. So. Yeah, up the Reds as always. Speedy recovery to Ugarte. You know, we love seeing and watching our Manchester United players play and compete at the World Cup. It's been immensely exciting so far. So let's hope that they continue to do well.
Yes, we shall see.
Yeah, and injury-free.
Yes, injury-free is the most important.
Yeah, facts. So,
if you made it this far,
thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.